At the company's annual party, Sarah won a curious prize, a figurine of the mysterious CEO.
What bad luck.
She smiled politely and twisted its head off. When the CEO asked for the figurine in exchange for a mysterious gift.
If I told you it wanted to cosplay as Louis XVI, would you believe me?
The horoscope said Sarah's luck in 2023 would be fantastic, and sure enough, at the annual party, she won the grand prize.
Watching my colleagues receive consolation prizes like Team All Genie, I suppressed my excitement and nervously opened the gift box.
Our company isn't stingy, and there's only one grand prize. Sarah must be the chosen one. Slowly opening the lid, her heart raced. Gold? Money? Or? Seeing the 1:1 scale figurine inside the box, Sarah was stunned.
What's the grand prize?
Something dirty.
A figurine? In this huge listed company, the grand prize is the CEO's figurine? And it's extremely ugly.
Laughable. To avoid giving money, the capitalist really went to any lengths. What bad luck!
The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Sarah decisively twisted the figurine's head off and stomped on it a few times.
Screw you! After the new year, I'm quitting.
After cursing the CEO's ancestors, Sarah felt relieved.
Let's welcome James on stage. You may not know, but James is the mysterious CEO of EE Group, and this is his first appearance. Let's give him a big hand.
Everyone applauded. Sarah smiled, holding the decapitated head, and looked at the stage. A well-tailored suit, perfect proportions, chiseled features, and legs longer than her life. She glanced at the figurine in her hand, its nose and eyes all wrong, and twitched.
Can someone tell me that this greasy middle-aged figurine is a 1:1 replica of the person on stage?
James, we have a fun segment at the annual party. Can you tell us what gift you prepared for the grand prize winner?
An apartment from our company, as an incentive for everyone here.
The crowd gasped, frantically asking who won the grand prize. Sarah's palms sweated as she held the head, feeling a sense of foreboding.
EE Group has always supported welfare homes, so the children prepared a special gift for James. Let's welcome our grand prize winner, Sarah, to present the gift.
All eyes turned to Sarah, and she wanted to cry.
Really, I'd rather be that head right now.
Under the hopeful gazes of everyone, I carried the gift box and walked onto the stage. As long as I acted confidently, no one would know I had damaged it. When the box was opened, Alexander's gaze shifted from the box to me. The camera zoomed in, and the large screen displayed the side of the figurine's head separated from its body, with Alexander engraved on it. Not exactly a good omen.
I kept a straight face. James, it wanted to cosplay as Louis XVI.
The air became tense. Michael forced a laugh.
The children at the welfare home really have a childlike innocence. This also reflects the love and support from EE Group, giving the kids a perfect childhood.
I secretly gave a thumbs up. Michael really knew how to talk.
Alexander looked at me with a half-smile. Which department are you from?
Design department, Sarah.
He nodded. You can pick up the keys and transfer contract from my office when you have time.
Me.
Why did that sound like a trap? The annual meeting ended, but Alexander's lingering irritation was palpable. On the first workday, I knocked on the CEO's office door on the 26th floor, but no one was there. On the second workday, I couldn't even get the door to the CEO's office open. On the third workday, my access card wouldn't even let me reach the 26th floor via the elevator.
Just bear with it for the sake of the apartment.
Yes, bear with it for the apartment. For the sake of this apartment from EE Group, I must show Alexander what it means to endure and adapt.
Since the issue lies with that unsightly figurine, I decided to fix it. I spent a fortune on snacks and headed straight to the welfare home that EE Group has been supporting. Let's make a new one.
This time, the gift for James was made by all the children in the welfare home, each contributing a small craft, and then we selected the best one.
So, which child made this figurine?
It was a rather introverted little boy named Ethan. James often takes time to visit him.
After the teacher left, I stared at the small figure, feeling overwhelmed by the information.
A powerful CEO frequently visits a child in a welfare home instead of running his company? And I broke the gift this child made for him, leading to his deliberate retaliation against me. Could it be an illegitimate child? It makes sense now.
Immediately, I squatted down with a lollipop in hand, a delicate little face coming into view.
Little one, what's your name?
His long lashes fluttered as he glanced at me, then turned away without a word.
Answer my question, and this is yours.
This time, he turned his whole body away, clearly signaling leave me alone.
What are you doing?
Almost reflexively, I stood up with a jolt, meeting Alexander's deep gaze.
In keeping with EE Group's tradition of charity, I visited the welfare home to see the children.
Alexander glanced at me briefly before his gaze shifted to Ethan beside me. Ethan finally turned around, and upon seeing Alexander, his eyes blinked twice and instantly became teary.
What?
Hey, hey, hey! Why does it look like I'm bullying him?
Alexander picked Ethan up with one hand, not sparing me a glance, and turned to leave.
James!
What is it?
As if he didn't know what this was about. Pretend all you want.
James, the apartment, do you remember?
Yes. Come to my office in a few days.
I'll be on vacation in a few days.
After the holidays then.
James, you're not just making empty promises, are you?
Alexander finally stopped, his gaze lightly falling on me, raising an eyebrow slightly.
I remember you said my figurine was cosplaying Louis XVI?
Yes.
And those footprints on it, what were they cosplaying?
Perhaps those weren't footprints. They symbolize the hardships and challenges you've faced on your journey with EE Group.
The air was silent for a few seconds.
You have a way with words.
Thank you.
Learned it from Michael. Ethan seemed to be in a better mood, turning to look at me with his teary eyes. I understood, to win over a man, you must first win over his child's heart.
This is for you, from your sister.
Ethan blinked twice, large tears rolling down his cheeks, then he buried his face in Alexander's shoulder, looking extremely aggrieved.
James! I didn't do anything!
Alexander gracefully withdrew his gaze and walked away, leaving behind a calm remark.
He has a cavity.
I didn't get the apartment, and now my sister was ordering me to pick up her daughter. Sophia is a strong woman. After a dramatic breakup, she decided to keep the child and has been managing her company day and night, leaving her daughter for me to take care of. The problem is that Lucy is quite a handful, and as a single young woman, I truly felt the hardships of post-marriage life.
Lucy, did you get into a fight again?
Lucy turned her head disdainfully.
That kid with small eyes looks like a water buffalo and dared to say I was missing a tooth? I just made sure he looked like me.
After countless apologies, I finally managed to calm down the kindergarten teacher and the other parents. Fortunately, that boy was in the middle of losing his baby teeth, so it wasn't a big deal. Otherwise, my salary wouldn't have been enough to cover the damages. It's sad. No apartment, Lucy doesn't listen, and Sophia ignores me. How am I supposed to get through this year? I collapsed on the big bed, and Lucy climbed up and lay beside me. Ethan's aggrieved expression flashed in my mind, and I blinked, patting Lucy.
Lucy, help me out. If you do, I'll personally bring your mom back for the new year, okay?
Her eyes lit up.
Deal!
On the last weekend before the new year, I took Lucy to the welfare home to help me deal with Ethan. The two of them were about the same age, so communicating would be easier for them than for me, an adult. This way, wouldn't the house be mine effortlessly? Ethan recognized me, but still didn't speak, happily playing with the Ultraman figure I bought him. I nudged Lucy, giving her a look, and she nodded, indicating she understood.
Do you like Ultraman?
Ethan nodded.
There's no real Ultraman, this one is fake.
I slapped my forehead, it was over. Sure enough, Ethan's eyes welled up.
Can you make another one? I'll pay you.
Ethan started crying, heart-wrenchingly. I hurriedly handed him tissues to wipe his tears, accidentally knocking over the Ultraman figure I had just bought him, which also broke into pieces. Ethan cried even harder, inconsolably. Alexander stood not far away, his face darkening.
Are you bullying kids in the welfare home now?
I'm innocent.
Just after the new year, before I could secure the house, my sister Grace rushed back. Grace tossed her LV handbag onto the sofa, crossed her legs, and said,
"Judging by your expression, you didn't meet the target. Get ready to resign and come work at the family company."
Her so-called target was for me to secure my own house within 2 years of graduation, or else pack up and join her in the family business. Lucy stood obediently by the side, blinking at me with a hint of apology.
Any objections?
Not at all. Give me a bit more time. I should be able to get the house.
She scrutinized me from head to toe, then nodded and pulled out a card.
Here. New Year's money.
Thank you, sister.
You can't use it to buy a house. I'll check.
Facing her deathly smile, I nodded repeatedly. Ever since my sister gave birth to Lucy, her personality changed drastically. She went to our father and demanded power, and in just 5 years, she managed to elevate our small beauty brand to the top 3 domestic brands. She's truly impressive. But I, shamelessly, still just wanted to slack off. Grace fell asleep on the sofa, so I covered her with a blanket and took Lucy out.
Lucy, good luck. Your aunt's happiness depends on you.
That little crybaby isn't fun, always crying. I stopped crying when I was 3.
Narrator, tone, sighing. Narrator, tone, excited after work. When I took Lucy to the welfare home, we coincidentally ran into Alexander teaching Ethan how to write calligraphy. The large floor-to-ceiling windows let in the sunlight, and his strokes were strong and elegant. For a moment, I was dazed, thinking that the sunset on Alexander's profile looked quite nice. Narrator, tone, shy. I cleared my throat. Hello, James.
He looked up and put down the brush.
Narrator, tone, hopeful. James, here's the thing, I put on a standard smile. The landlord is selling the house, and as you know, it's hard to book a hotel during the new year. If the company's reward could be delivered promptly, I wouldn't have to sleep on the streets. Narrator, tone, serious. His gaze seemed to probe the truth of my words.
I know you're in a hurry.
Narrator, tone, confused. I blinked.
But don't rush.
Narrator, tone, puzzled?
The manager in charge of EE Apartments is on annual leave. He pondered for a moment. We'll discuss it later.
Narrator, tone, frustrated, does he know? His heart is colder than stone. Narrator, tone, hopeful. I took a deep breath, ready to argue, but then I saw Alexander's gaze fall on Lucy.
What's your name?
Narrator, tone, protective. I shielded Lucy behind me. Well, she's just a child. She didn't mean it last time.
She peeked out from behind me, staring straight at Alexander. My name is Lucy.
Narrator, tone, curious. Alexander's fingers paused. After a while, he said.
Nice name.
Narrator, tone, puzzled. Feeling a bit puzzled, I looked at Alexander a few more times. Why did he seem a bit strange? Narrator, tone, sad. I still couldn't get the apartment, so I said goodbye to Alexander and Ethan, and left the welfare home with Lucy. Narrator, tone, cheerful. The sun was shining brightly, and Lucy tugged at my clothes. Auntie. Narrator, tone, curious. What's up? I looked down at her.
Mom has a photo in her wallet. It looks a bit like that uncle just now.
As I glanced at the figurine in my hand, a sense of unease washed over me. The nose and eyes were all wrong. Could someone please tell me that this greasy middle-aged figurine is a 1:1 replica of the person on stage?
James, we have a fun segment at the annual party. He handed over the microphone. Can you tell us what gift you prepared for the grand prize winner?
Alexander nodded gracefully, his deep voice resonating through the microphone.
An apartment from our company, as an incentive for everyone here.
The crowd gasped, frantically asking who won the grand prize. My palms sweated as I held the head, feeling a sense of foreboding.
EE Group has always supported welfare homes, so the children prepared a special gift for James. He smiled at me. Let's welcome our grand prize winner, Sarah, to present the gift.
All eyes turned to me, and I wanted to cry. Really, I'd rather be that head right now. On the last day before my vacation, I arrived at the company only to find everyone's eyes on me, whispering. Emily pointed to the company's public account and the post from yesterday.
You're famous.
The post was about EE Group's support for the welfare home, with a picture of Alexander teaching Ethan to write. Unfortunately, my sycophantic face was prominently featured beside him.
Did you get the company benefits?
Hey, isn't she just trying her best?
What do you mean?
Hey, don't get mad, we're just joking. Your family is well off. Why would you care about this apartment? Why are you always sucking up to James?
What else? James is single. If I were a woman, I'd go for it too.
My frown deepened. When I first joined the company, everything I wore and used was brand name stuff prepared by Sophia, which led to these two mocking me for being a gold digger. When the truth came out, David started pursuing me, only to be rejected. Since then, it evolved into a can't have it, destroy it situation. I let out a cold laugh, ignored them, and sat at my desk to turn on my computer.
Oh, so you're admitting to hooking up with James?
Sarah.
It's okay. As a woman, being slandered with such rumors doesn't require self-defense. It's very passive. Because the people spreading rumors have empty, lonely lives and twisted minds, they need this to feel less bored. It's pretty pathetic.
Sarah, what do you mean?
You two, one has been single for 30 years and can't find a partner. The other drove his wife away without even leaving a child. What? Did I say something wrong?
John was so angry he wanted to hit me, but I raised an eyebrow and smiled provocatively, making him stop in his tracks. After all, he didn't want to experience being taken to the police station for questioning again.
Sarah, just you wait!
The glass door of the design department's office was knocked on, and everyone turned their attention to it, the air suddenly quiet. The manager ran out of his office, looking obsequious.
James, what brings you here?
The atmosphere in the design department seems quite good.
He was being sarcastic. The manager wiped the sweat from his forehead.
Everyone is very united and friendly.
Sarah, come out for a moment.
I felt a bit resentful. What do you do when your ex-brother-in-law is your boss? Asking for a friend urgently. Ignoring Alexander's words, I opened the client's request. The edge of my desk was tapped, and a deep voice sounded above me.
It won't take long.
I quickly typed a receive to the client. Alexander sighed lightly above me.
The keys and transfer contract need your signature.
I almost laughed. Would I betray my sister for an apartment? I quickly closed my laptop and smiled.
All right, I'm coming.
I don't know what got into Alexander, but he actually completed all the procedures for the apartment handover the day before my vacation. Maybe he was afraid I would take Lucy to bully Ethan again? The floor-to-ceiling windows of the high-rise were clear and clean, offering a direct view of the skyscrapers opposite.
The access card has been cleared for you. It was a misunderstanding by the assistant. Don't worry about it.
I blinked. Why is Alexander being so polite today?
Lucy is.
Oh, trying to inquire about the child?
My child.
He looked up sharply, and I saw the shock in his eyes. Pulling out a tissue, I wiped the corner of my eye, feeling a bit melancholic.
Young and reckless, got deceived, raising the child alone, wanting a house just to give the child a home.
You, on your resume, unmarried.
Yes, unmarried and had a child. Who could be more miserable than me?
I continued wiping my eyes, feeling quite satisfied with my Oscar-worthy performance.
You've had a hard time. The year-end bonus will be transferred to your account.
Thank you, James.
Although something felt off, I shook my head and dismissed the doubt. Who cares, I got the house, no more being exploited by Sophia, haha. Taking an early vacation, we headed straight to our hometown in Sophia's bold red Ferrari.
Not bad, nodding as she looked at the property deed I showed her. Move in after the new year, don't stay at my place.
I responded obediently.
Okay. Sis, why don't you want to go on blind dates?
I'm not interested in men.
I pushed a bowl of tangerines towards her and tentatively asked.
Can you tell me about Lucy's dad?
She frowned.
What's there to talk about? I don't remember.
Sigh, Sophia is still deeply hurt.
Lucy, come here, bringing out a large bowl of cherries.
Back then, when Grace had a child out of wedlock, Michael almost went after the culprit with a knife. But he never found him. Grace leaned on the sofa, casually responding to work messages on her phone. I nudged her and gave her a look, and she responded with an okay gesture. Grace dropped me off at the blind date location, a high-end restaurant with a reserved private room. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door to the private room. A familiar face greeted me. I stepped back out and checked the door number, 999. No mistake. I peeked back in and met Alexander's calm gaze. Seriously? The world is this small?
What do you do when you end up on a blind date with your company's big boss instead of your sister? Waiting online, this is urgent.
Alexander was also momentarily surprised, but quickly composed himself. He poured a cup of lemon tea and said warmly,
Come in and sit.
With a heavy heart, I sat across from him. Soft folk music played around us, and the view from the high-rise windows added to the ambience. If only Alexander wasn't sitting across from me. After a while, he spoke.
Where's Lucy? Why didn't you bring her?
Who brings a child to a blind date?
He was silent for 2 seconds.
Fair point.
After another pause, He took a sip of tea and continued.
Miss Sarah, to be honest, I'm here on behalf of my uncle. I didn't expect this coincidence.
So, he was also set up?
How about this? I'll agree on behalf of my uncle.
What? Alexander pushed a black card towards me.
This is for the child's upbringing expenses over the years.
What? Wait a minute. My sister's fiancé wants me to be his aunt? What kind of bizarre relationship is this?
Miss Sarah, I know this is sudden. You can take some time to think about it.
Stunned, I grabbed my purse, quickly said goodbye, and rushed out of the private room. As soon as I reached the lobby, I saw Grace with an e-cigarette in her fingers, casually responding to work messages on her laptop. I rushed over.
Sis, this is too ridiculous.
What? She raised an eyebrow.
The blind date is your fiancé.
Uncle.
At the same time, Alexander's deep voice sounded behind me. Following his gaze, I saw a well-dressed, refined man sitting across from Grace.
Uncle, I found the aunt you've been looking for.
The next second, Alexander pulled me in front of him.
What?
I sat next to Grace, dazed for a long time. Across from us, Alexander looked just as bewildered as I was. Alexander's uncle, Matthew, adjusted his scholarly glasses and spoke gently.
I apologize for taking so long to find you. It was my oversight.
I sneaked a glance at Grace, who frowned irritably and glared at me. Oh, this was my doing. If I hadn't brought Lucy to Alexander, Matthew wouldn't have traced Grace back to her, and we wouldn't be in this situation now. My sister is truly amazing. All my assumptions about her being heartbroken and raising a child alone were just my wishful thinking. She really did leave the father out of the picture. Matthew has everything: money, looks, intelligence. My sister just wanted his superior genes but hated the complexities of high society, so she had a one-night stand. The domineering wife running away with the baby, how trendy. I sneaked another look at Matthew. I have to admit, this brother-in-law is quite handsome. Grace finally closed her laptop.
Let's leave it at that. I hope this won't affect the cooperation between the G and Lou families.
What do you mean? I started to speak, but she glared at me again. Alexander naturally understood the situation, glanced at Matthew's calm expression, stood up, and handed me a black card.
Take it, for the child.
Me? He smiled slightly. It was clear that Grace had been very troubled since meeting Matthew. Her gloomy expression was so evident that even our dad didn't dare to ask how her blind date went. Right after the new year, Grace drove me back to the apartment.
Resign.
My hand, which was about to push open the car door, retracted.
The design department at James' company is pretty good, and they've recently taken on an international project that I'm really interested in.
Doesn't the G group have any?
Grace rubbed her temples. The car fell silent for a moment, and Lucy blinked at us.
Being parachuted in sounds impressive, but the actual path is tough, and you know it.
When Grace first joined the company, she was parachuted in as a manager, and while everyone was polite on the surface, they secretly sabotaged the projects she handled. Now, after many struggles, she had become the CEO of the G Group. I, on the other hand, didn't want the board members to think the G family's daughter was too laid back, so I went to work at James' company. With no significant achievements yet, I really didn't want to go back. Grace finally sighed, looking out the window.
Then let's wait a bit longer. We're still young.
Feeling a bit emotional, I looked at her, suddenly feeling a surge of motivation.
Yes, we're still young, and we have a long way to go.
Eventually, we'll outlast those old timers, and you can come back then.
Returning to work after the new year, I saw Alexander waiting at my desk. Amidst the whispers of my colleagues, he took me outside and expressed his desire to meet Lucy. It seemed he was genuinely intent on helping his uncle find a partner.
According to seniority, Lucy should be considered my sister, so meeting her shouldn't be inappropriate.
I chuckled at his words.
Shouldn't you call me Aunt then, James?
His face flushed slightly, even his earlobes turning a bit red.
Let's not say such things.
I still brought Lucy to the welfare home, where Alexander was teaching Ethan to write. I understood the situation clearly, even though Grace wasn't interested in Matthew now. In a typical CEO romance novel, the plot would be, she runs, he chases, and they can't escape each other. Alexander patted Ethan's head and came to stand beside me, his expression softening.
Ethan is my uncle's adopted child. He has autism, and the doctor recommended he interact more with peers, so he stays at the welfare home to aid his condition.
I nodded, looking over at Ethan clumsily writing while Lucy watched with her chin in her hands. The atmosphere was much more harmonious than last time.
Why doesn't Miss Sarah work at the G group?
Was this an interrogation? I waved my hand.
James, rest assured, I have no intention of stealing secrets from the Lou group.
The air grew tense for a moment. I waved my hand again, quickly explaining.
Although we were rivals for a while, we're cooperating well now. Wait, even though the companies were competing when I joined the Lou group, I really had no such intentions.
After a long explanation that only made things worse, I decided to be blunt.
According to seniority, I'm your aunt. If you really can't accept it, call the authorities.
A large hand gently patted my head. I looked up to meet his amused eyes, my heart skipping a beat.
Sarah, you are quite interesting.
The project that the Lou Corporation took on was for a foreign jewelry product. Our design department worked several late nights to finalize the promotional design plan and posters. The entire design department planned a team-building dinner. The design department was divided into two groups. Our group was fully responsible for this project, but John, the leader of the second group, insisted on joining the dinner, turning it into a department-wide event.
Tonight's dinner, don't bother with John and his group. You've put in a lot of effort on this project, you might get promoted to deputy leader and earn a bigger bonus. They have been bad-mouthing you behind your back.
How are they still causing trouble?
You don't know? John's relative is a big manager in HR, so he has strong connections. Let's go, let's get a good seat.
The design department, consisting of about a dozen people, booked a private room. After a few rounds of drinks, the girls started chatting about gossip and makeup, while the guys made crude jokes.
I'm leaving now, my boyfriend is downstairs.
Got it.
Emily said a few polite words to the manager and headed for the door, but John, reeking of alcohol, approached her.
It's only 8. Leaving so early kills the mood.
I really have to go, my boyfriend is waiting downstairs.
John picked up a full glass of wine and tried to pull her again.
All right, drink this glass and I'll let you go. Ouch.
Smack, I hit his hand with my chopsticks without mercy.
Let go of her.
Sarah, don't mess with me.
A few female colleagues couldn't stand it anymore.
Why force a girl to drink?
Her boyfriend is waiting. John, this is not right.
Of course, amidst the girls' protests, there was an unharmonious voice.
Hey, it's just a joke. No need to take it seriously.
A joke? Emily is allergic to alcohol. 1 glass and she'll be carried out. What now? Attempted harm is considered a joke?
John's face turned pale. I opened the door and told Emily.
Go quickly, don't keep your boyfriend waiting.
It's fine, go.
Emily left, and John brought the glass of wine to me, his face flushed.
Sarah, you seemed to be drinking well earlier. Why don't you drink this for Emily?
I smiled, took the glass, and poured it on his face.
Helping you sober up. You're welcome. John, if I hear you bad-mouthing me again, it won't just be wine next time.
John's face turned green, and he tried to grab me. I swiftly moved outside the door. Bang! I rubbed my forehead in pain and looked up to see Alexander's stern expression. The room fell silent as everyone stood up in a panic.
James!
James was holding John's wrist, his fingers turning white from the pressure. John was terrified.
James! I was just joking!
Why was Alexander here? I looked up at him, noticing his sharp jawline and sexy Adam's apple. His expressionless face gave off a stormy vibe.
Robert!
Robert stumbled out of the crowd, his drunkenness instantly sobered, smiling apologetically.
James, our colleagues were just joking. Please don't mind.
Alexander looked down at me.
Are you hurt?
The cold wind cleared my head, and I felt both clear and dizzy. I shook my head, then nodded.
I was wronged.
Alexander didn't say anything. I pointed to the surveillance camera and then to the culprits.
Surveillance, lawsuit, fire them, hold them accountable.
The atmosphere in the room froze, and many eyes turned to me. Yes, I was using my connections. Since Alexander wanted my sister to be his sister-in-law, he had to please me.
Robert, understood? Bring the relevant documents to HR tomorrow.
His fingers gently circled my wrist, and he was about to take me away when he paused and turned.
By the way, I'll be there.
Brought to the car by Alexander, I obediently sat in the passenger seat, the warmth inside the car making my cheeks flush.
Why are you here?
His long fingers reached over me, pulling the seatbelt and fastening it for me.
Lucy sent a message to Ethan, saying you didn't pick her up.
I blinked. A few seconds later, I slapped my forehead as it dawned on me.
Darn, I forgot.
Just as I was about to rush out of the car, Alexander grabbed my arm.
She's already been picked up. She's with Ethan, reading, and the nanny is watching them.
When did Lucy get Ethan's contact information?
Smartwatch, 4 kids.
After a moment, I awkwardly smiled.
You really slipped that advertisement in seamlessly.
Alexander remained silent, the car smoothly stopping in front of a villa, or more accurately, a mansion. I reached to open the car door, only to find it locked.
James, you forgot to unlock the door.
He pursed his lips slightly, his gaze falling on me.
Next time something like this happens, remember to message me first. I'll come to get you. Don't be reckless.
A bit dazed, the warmth of the car's air conditioning made my head feel heavy. Staring into his eyes for a while, I finally realized.
James, are you worried about me?
A flicker of unease crossed his eyes. I smiled knowingly, patting his shoulder.
Don't worry, Andy knows what she's doing.
Promoting myself to an aunt, I felt satisfied and patted his shoulder twice more to reassure him. The air was quiet for a moment before the car door unlocked abruptly.
Get out.
Oh.
I shook my head and climbed out of the car. Was it just me, or did he seem a bit unhappy about me taking advantage? As soon as I entered the hall, the nanny informed me that Lucy had been put to sleep in the room next to Ethan's.
If she's asleep, don't wake her, he said softly beside me. I've also arranged a room for you.
I shook my head. Although I was technically his aunt, we weren't related by blood, and it didn't seem appropriate for a single man and woman to stay in his house. Clearing my throat, I spoke up, then I won't take Lucy back. I'll just.
A woman's voice suddenly came from the second floor. Let go of me. James.
I froze. Wasn't that my sister's voice? She was here. And the abrupt end of her voice clearly indicated.
Alexander's expression beside me turned to a mix of surprise and embarrassment. Damn it. Matthew, that beast, was he really using force?
Grabbing a wine bottle and smashing it on the table edge, I rushed upstairs with the broken piece.
Sarah, you!
Alcohol really does the trick. I kicked the door open and saw Matthew and Grace. Matthew's shirt was slightly disheveled, his gold-rimmed glasses precariously perched on his nose, while Grace was adjusting her collar, her eyes filled with allure.
Wait a minute. This looked a bit like playing hard to get. I paused for a moment, then asked awkwardly, "Do you need help?"
Smiling slightly, gritting her teeth, "Get out."
The next second, Alexander pulled me out, and the door closed with a gust of wind. I looked at the broken Maudai bottle in my hand and sobered up completely.
His earlobes were slightly red. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to tell you, your sister is also staying at my house.
That's not the point, I looked at him. Alexander, this means I'm really your aunt now.
It didn't sound too bad. Lifting his chin, I breathed out the scent of alcohol. Call me auntie, will you? Morning. I rushed out of the bedroom in a panic and saw Alexander cooking porridge.
What's wrong?
I couldn't hold back my tears as I pulled out my phone.
I need to call the police. There's been a break-in.
He looked slightly confused.
I woke up this morning, and my balance was 0. It must be a scam. I don't know if I can get it back.
A hand with distinct knuckles covered the dialing screen. Then, the screen went dark.
It wasn't a thief. You insisted on giving me New Year's money, and I couldn't stop you. Auntie?
I shivered, almost kneeling before him. Looking around, I realized this was the apartment I won in the raffle. Fragments of memories flashed through my mind. I remembered interrupting Grace's good time and insisting Alexander call me auntie, saying he had to give me New Year's money for every time he called me that.
Wait, did he actually call me that? Why does this feel so morally wrong?
Breakfast is ready.
As I drank the porridge, I wanted to slap myself. Grace always said that when I drink, I don't seem drunk, but my actions are more outrageous than those who are.
How could it not be outrageous? Who drinks and loses all their money?
Have you seen enough, Auntie?
I was speechless. How is he getting so comfortable with this? But every time he called me auntie, it made it harder for me to ask for my money back. After much hesitation, I decided to ask Alexander for the money instead of Grace.
Dear nephew.
Alexander looked up at me.
Can I get my New Year's money back? Even half would be fine.
He stared at me, then chuckled.
Auntie, do you remember how you gave me the New Year's money?
That auntie made my heart tremble. I wanted to cry. Of course, I remembered. The next second, Alexander grabbed my wrist, and I found myself sitting on his lap. What kind of outrageous, suggestive position was this? Just as I was about to get up in a panic, he held my waist, circled my wrist, and placed my fingertips on his Adam's apple. His deep voice resonated, and I felt the vibration of his vocal cords and the movement of his Adam's apple.
Just like this, you said, call me once, and I'll give you a red envelope. When the red envelopes were gone, you said this apartment was mine. When everything was gone, you told me to call you one last time and said you'd give yourself to me.
My heart raced as he looked up at me, and I stared straight into his deep eyes. I admit, this man is quite attractive, and I was falling for him.
Do you keep your word, Auntie?
Narrator, tone, serious. The company handled the situation with John and David swiftly, compiling all the necessary information and handing it over to the authorities. Grace, lounging with her legs crossed and puffing on an e-cigarette, looked every bit the intimidating figure, almost scaring them into submission. Narrator, tone, relieved. Matthew promptly improved the company's internal reporting channels and rules. Only then did Grace stand up, satisfied, with Matthew smiling gently and following her.
James, tone, sad-eyes sighed inwardly. She was indeed trapped. Suddenly, my hand was enveloped in a warm grasp. I was startled and tried to pull away, but couldn't.
James, tone, whispering, let go.
Narrator, tone, cheerful. Alexander glanced down at me, a smile playing on his lips. I looked ahead at the two people walking steadily in front of us, feeling my cheeks heat up. This was turning into a major clandestine affair.
James, tone, shy. I hadn't even had a chance to come clean with Grace about her husband's nephew becoming her sister's partner. Yet here was Alexander, shamelessly demanding recognition. I had told him to wait, to keep things under wraps for a while.
Narrator, tone, serious. Grace suddenly stopped and turned around. My heart leapt into my throat, and the hand holding mine tightened. Grace's gaze fell on our intertwined hands, and she raised an eyebrow.
Grace, tone, unfriendly. You two have a good aunt-nephew relationship?
James, tone, cheerful, sort of.
Narrator, tone, cheerful. I tried to pull my hand away, but Alexander's grip remained firm.
Alexander, tone, friendly. Hello, sister.
Narrator, tone, shy. Matthew looked puzzled. I covered my face, feeling desperate. Someone, please save me from this tangled web of relationships. Narrator, tone, cheerful. Lucy and Ethan rode the rocking car at the community gate 3 times, still unsure whether to call Alexander brother or uncle. Eventually, we came to an agreement. Narrator, tone, cheerful. On odd-numbered days, Alexander would call Matthew brother-in-law, and on even-numbered days, I would call Grace aunt. Narrator, tone, cheerful. As for Sundays?
Alexander, tone, seductive. What do you think, little aunt?